Howdy, howdy. Suitable here, and welcome to the final episode of our essential units exploring the Dwarf versus Lizardmen matchup. In this episode, we're going to summarize everything, and we're going to run some test battles against some builds I found online, and I do have a one battle against. I just went online and opened it up. It said Dwarfs versus Lizardmen testing, and I got someone who graciously joined up and tried to demolish the Dowie army that I had out there. But before we get going, to really summarize, through all the testing, we did find that there are 5 essential units that really, if you have these 5 units in your build, they will all perform at a high level and will really help your build. There are quite a few options in this matchup. I do think the Dowie have a bit of an edge from what I'm seeing because of the infantry engagement, and there are answers to the large units, and there are answers to wide units, wide builds and stuff like that. So really it is the Slayers with 2 chevrons, which is a very nice find, the Grumbling Guard, who are amazing, who need to be in every single Dowie build against the Lizard, the Dragonback Slayers, who, I mean, I think anyone who's going to play against the Lizardmen is always going to bring at least the Dragonback Slayers. I would recommend that you bring at least 2 units of Slayers, one with 2 chevrons, and of course the Bugman's Rangers, who are amazing on the edges with at least 1 chevron and potentially 3. And of course these Uthar's Raiders, which are really, really good at putting a lot of pressure on big units. So that said, we're going to go through each of the elements of the Dwarf army and talk a little bit about them. And we're going to start with the Lords. Really, there are only 3 Lords that I would choose for this matchup, and that is Ungrim, Iron Fist, the basic Rune Lord, and the basic Lord. Now, we saw any of these Lords get involved with a one-on-one with someone like Crockguard, Grimlock. If they're exposed and in the open, they're going to get dumpstered. But really, Thorgrim, I love Thorgrim. He's my favorite. Obviously, I play all my campaigns with Thorgrim, but he's just not a great Lord in this matchup. He's good, but he's not as good as the other ones for various reasons. Same with Grongbrindle, and same with Belgar, who's really strong in infantry engagements and has some decent abilities. But it is Ungrim with that great anti-large, bonus versus large of 35, charge bonus of 50. If you're going to put Ungrim in your army, I would highly suggest you give him Deadly Onslaught, because that 36% charge bonus means something on him. The 20% armor piercing damage and 20% weapon damage are both very good, and also the Axe of Dargo. That makes him at about 1740, which is expensive, but if you're bringing Ungrim, might as well use him as Ungrim is meant to be used. The Axe of Dargo gives a plus 32 bonus versus large, with his already 35 bonus versus large. That's going to be 77, which is really, really strong, and 40% armor piercing damage, along with this ability with 20% armor piercing and 20% weapon and 36% charge. He's a beast. He can't face up one-on-one against these big monsters because he gets knocked around, but if he can get into an engagement where a monster is already engaged with someone else, he's going to absolutely drop them. But he's at 1,700 gold. He's the most expensive option, and he is appropriate against the Lizardmen, of course. Then we have the regular Lord, who, with this ability, Banner of Lost Holds, plus 5 melee attack and plus 6% weapon damage with a 40-meter range, can be very good at 1158. The idea is to have a cheap Lord and go wide with the rest of your army and pump a little bit more value that way. And he can be really good in this configuration at 1,100 gold. That's 600 gold cheaper than Ungrim. And again, he's not going to face up one-on-one against any of the big units, but he's going to buff a lot of units with that plus 5 melee attack and plus 6% weapon damage, and we have shown it is very valuable. And then lastly, the basic Rune Lord. And my recommendation for him, he's in 2 configurations, well, really 3, but just with the Master Rune of Wrath and Rune at 962, he's a pretty good value. You only need to get that Master Rune of Wrath and Rune off twice in a battle to pull value out of it. And if you are really worried about magic, you can put him on his mount and give him this ability, Locust of Power, which is 15% magic resistance map wide, which is going to give all your dwarfs 40% magic resistance, which can be pretty decent. And you can also think about giving them Forge Fire, plus 10% armor piercing damage if you're going to have a lot of units like the Peak Gate Guard or Hammers, and even buffing your Grumbling Guard can be very good. And even buffing just regular Longbeards, we saw that can pull some value, but that does make him pretty expensive. I think on foot and with just the ability of Master Rune of Wrath and Rune, he will get the job done. So that's my basic suggestion for the Lords. All three are good, and it's not to say that the other three are awful or anything else like that, but these three can definitely outperform because of either their low cost or they're really Ungram with his bonus versus large and unbreakable and these types of things as Slayer King. Now, I'm not recommending any heroes. Not to say that you can't bring them. I mean, the Master Engineer seems to be pretty weak in this matchup. I didn't do a lot of analysis on him, but this is not the right matchup for him because we're not going to have a lot of ranged in general, but maybe you might find a way to sneak him in. The Runesmith can be decent. You can give him Forge Fire, and it's only 143 on him, and of course Rune of Wrath and Rune, and you can bring him onto the field at 680, and he's going to be a reasonable option. That Rune of Wrath and Rune at minus 48% speed, and the damage it causes can be extremely good. And of course the Thane, which is typically brought on for, oh, I forgot, the Runesmith. The other ability, he can use Forge Fire, but the other ability you can consider is his Hammer of Karak Draws. You know, it's 152 gold, but you put that minus 44 melee attack and minus 25% weapon damage for 50 seconds on someone like Krokgar. It can be really crushing because Krokgar can finish one of your lords off in 30 seconds, so that will definitely extend that engagement, but it makes him a lot more expensive. As far as the Thane goes, really, the Tormentor Sword took a pretty big nerf. Not a pretty big nerf. It only stops units for 9 seconds, and the minus 26 melee attack is good, but then it takes 90 seconds to recharge. At 810, you know, he's getting up to the value of a Slayer. If you put on him the Master Rune of Stromny Redbeard, that plus 5 melee attack is pretty decent. If you just need to hit 2 units for 4 minutes, and you're going to get your value out of that, or 2 high value units for a shorter amount of time. But then he gets, you know, over 1,000 gold. Can be expensive. I'm not recommending any of these just for a base build. Not to say that they can't be useful. I think the Runesmith may, I don't know, they're really close, but I think the Runesmith may be a little more useful. The Thane maybe, it's hard to say. But I'm just looking at a base build and some options. So your Lord options are those 3. Your heroes, I wouldn't bring any, but you know, you can make a case to bring a Thane or a Runesmith. I just think there are better choices in this lineup. Now your infantry, it definitely has to be the Grumbling Guard for sure, but you have options here. Now all the lower level infantry, you know, your miners with blaster charge, dwarf warriors with great weapons, and particularly the Longbeards with great weapons, which is actually a very poor choice in this matchup. You can just leave them home. The choices really are between the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, your regular Longbeards, your Hammers, and of course your Ironbreakers or your Norgrimling's Ironbreakers. You can put them in pretty much any configuration that works for you, as long as you have that Grumbling Guard in there. You know, that's the key unit for the frontline engagement. So lots of options with infantry. Just stay away from the units like the lower level units because they don't have immunity to psychology, which is fear and terror, which can be a real problem when half the units the Lizardmen have do cause fear or terror or both. All right, for the missile infantry, really the choices are really into these guys. Of course, the Ulthar's Raiders are your your essential unit for your big thing killer, and your Bugman's Rangers with 1 chevron are your essential unit for the edges. Now these Rangers with the great weapons are extremely good, and the Thunders are pretty good, and your Iron Drakes are pretty good. All choices onto how you're going to configure your back line. There's nothing bad about any of these. I would say though that the Thunders are probably the weakest of the bunch. They have good range though, and they can shoot things out of the sky. It's really hard to say actually. They're all good. The Iron Drakes though, the one caveat with the Iron Drakes is they are utterly defenseless if anything gets through. This is why if you're going to have Iron Drakes, you need a unit just to screen for them or take charges or to protect them at all times. You have to think, and this is where you might want to bring in a miner, or you might want to bring a basic dwarf warrior, but they will get terror routed. You know, you might even want to just put a Longbeard with them. The idea being that this unit will be screening for the Iron Drakes for a good chunk of the battle until things can get sorted out, so that your Iron Drakes can shoot. Because if they get charged even by feral cold ones, they're going to get demolished. They do a ton of damage. They put that hit by artillery debuff of -10 to the leadership of whatever they're hitting, and all the damage is spike damage, but they have to be defended. They can't just be sitting out there on their own. Now, as far as the gyrocopters, the only one I really looked at was the Brimstone gun version, because it is anti-large, because it is armor piercing, and they have a lot of large units, and almost everything has armor. And it didn't really perform. It doesn't do a lot of damage, and the bombs aren't going to do as much damage either, because they don't have a lot of armor piercing either. But they do fire damage, and it is an option to consider. But if the Lizardmen have anything in the sky, and they likely will, they might have a, someone up on a pterodon, or they might have pterodon riders. Anything they have can take your gyrocopters out quite easily. But I mean, gyrocopters can keep things routing. I mean, it's a consideration, but I think they're generally weak in this matchup, even though it would seem like they could be good with their anti-large and armor piercing. As far as your artillery, really, grudge throwers and your goblobber and your flame cannons, I didn't look at them. I think they're generally going to be weak in this matchup, because they're not going to have a lot of, once the frontline engagement starts, you're not going to have a lot of backline units to target. It's going to be a little harder to get them to be useful because they're not really accurate. I looked at the bolt thrower, the cannon, and the organ gun. I would say the organ gun is okay, and you could use it for fun for demolishing cav or some units coming in, or Croxagors or something like that. But the cannon and the bolt thrower are really, what they do is two things. If you want to, you can get a bolt thrower, put just one bolt thrower. I wouldn't put more than one in general in your back line, but put one bolt thrower in the pocket, in the back line, and it's not going to do a ton of damage, but if it can shoot over the entire battle, it will get all its value. The thing that it does is it debuffs anything it hits with that hit by artillery of -10 leadership, and it also provides a target. So if you want to goad your enemy into your center, or get them to push around the sides to try and get to this bolt thrower to shut it down, or bring in pterodon riders or something, basically your slayers can collapse on whatever's taking the bolt thrower. So it's almost like setting a trap, and it's a cheap way to do it at 550. The builds that I've looked at a lot of builds, some with artillery. The build I'm going to recommend does not have any artillery. So let's take a look at the build we're going to recommend. Now, again, I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I tested about 13 builds in different ways before I settled this on my recommendation for the base build. And that is this right here, a Rune Lord. And the reason I picked the Rune Lord is because he's the cheapest. That's the only reason. So I could have a wider line. And again, you can pick Ungram, you can put in your regular Lord, and they will do just fine. The reason I'm recommending this build is because it's fairly level. The cheapest unit is 750, the most expensive unit is 1184, and or I guess the cheapest unit is 700. You're pretty robust. I mean, it's just an all-around robust package, and you can play with it. You want to take out 2 Longbeards and put in the Norgrimlings Ironbreakers, you can. You want to, or you take out a Longbeard and a Warrior of Dragonfire Pass and do that, or you want to put in your Peak Gate Guard, you can do that. You can build up an army from here pretty easily. So I think it's a nice base package, and it's actually fairly simple to control because the only units you have in the pocket in the center of your arrangement is going to be your Ulthar's Raiders, your Rune Lord, and your Dragonback Slayers. So what it does allow for is a relatively easy to control army, just to play with these units in that engagement to maybe learn what works best for you. And you may already know, maybe you like to have a lot of Ironbreakers, and you can put 3 Ironbreakers, you can put 2 Ironbreakers and the Norgrimlings Ironbreakers. You have tons of options for the front line depending on how wide you want to go. We're going to put this up against 3 builds. There's 3 online builds. One is a build from Ninja Hund, just a general, and it's not a specific build against the Daoi. It's a general, like he plays a lot of online. It's a general Lizardmen build that's relatively solid. We're going to go up against Gobba King's build for the Lizardmen, which is specifically meant to match up well against the Daoi. And again, his build is just like mine I'm talking about, is just a base package. It's meant to be played with. It's not meant to be the final build, depending on what you like. And then we're going to go up against a build that Turin faced in one of his streams against the Lizardmen player who did Mass Saurus Warriors and beat him. Again, that the Mass Saurus Warriors thing is a build you might see once in a while. And Turin's build, if you watch him, he really likes to play around with his builds. He likes to experiment a lot. His build wasn't the best that he could have brought. And I've seen him play a lot. When he really hunkers down and wants to play optimally, he really does refine his builds. But on his streams, he really does seem to like to play around with different builds and different ideas. So we're going to take on those 3 armies. And then I went online, opened up a room, and just said Dwarfs versus Lizardmen testing, and someone graciously decided to come in and humor me, and we ran 3 battles. I'll be showing one of those, and I had asked, to bring whatever he thought would be the toughest for the Dwarfs to deal with, and it's actually an interesting battle to watch. So we'll play these 3 battles against the AI. It's not the best. I tried to organize against another person. It's not the easiest to do with my schedule, other people's schedules. It's hard to sort these things out very easily. But first we're going to play against Ninja Hund's recommended build for the Lizardmen. It's got a Bastillodon with a Revivification Crystal. It's got Krotgar, a Skink Priest with Heavens, Skink Chief, and some cohorts which are going to be very weak, but it has the Saurus Warriors with shields which are strong, 2 Feral Cold ones, and 2 Feral Bastillodons. So we'll run these 3 battles, and I'm not the best general in the world, and I'm not the best commentator when I fight. If you've ever watched me play my Let's Plays, but this should really kind of demonstrate the basic package and what I'm getting at. So we'll take our Slayers and our Bugman's Rangers. We're going to put these guys on our left side, and there's going to be our left edge defense. We're going to put our Ulthar's Raiders. They're going to be in the pocket, and I want to take Fire at Will off, so I'm just going to put them in the pocket. Grab our other Slayers and other Bugman's Rangers, put them on the right side for our edge defense. And I don't know exactly how we're going to put this, but we'll just put our front line of Warriors of Dragonfire Pass and our Longbeards, and basically just run them across, reasonably wide, trying to match them up, and we will group them. Then I don't know, it doesn't really matter which way I do this. Yeah, Krokgar's in that side. We'll take our Longbeards, put them this way, and we'll take our hammers and put them on this side. And they're just our secondary line. And put our Uthar's Raiders maybe right here. And of course, we're going to get our Lord, and we're going to put him right dead center. I mean, that's the key. You want him right dead center of your Slayers. You got to assume your Slayers are kind of like a mount. Group them up and just lock that. And I'll try and give all my commands with those as a group to whatever we're going to do. So, something like that. I'm just going to put these guys up a little bit. All right. Just so my Rangers can get some shots in early. And the Slayer. So really, the idea is we have a fairly robust front line that's going to hold for a while. We have some armor piercing in the second row to jump in wherever we need them. These Othar's Raiders are there to dumpster big things along with our Lord and these Dragonback Slayers. And our Slayers are going to protect the edges, and once they're done, they're going to go after the big things, we'll say. Alright, so let's just start the battle, and we'll do our best to... I'll do my best to stay on top of and explain what I'm doing as I'm doing it. I'm not really super good at that, but we'll just fast forward it here a little bit. I'm just going to take a few shots on the way in. Okay. What do we got there? Feral Cold Ones. Okay, Skink Cohorts. I'm just going to give a little bit of the edge because I have that there. Showers Warriors. Alright. And... we'll just get ready for this engagement. I'll let you go there. You go there. You guys in here. And that Pterodon Rider. Okay, and we'll get our Lord in. Just want to use this against some Saurus Warriors. Okay, let's go and get the distill it out of the Revivification Crystal, and we will set our Uthar's Raiders on Krokgar. Actually, I put these guys back on Krokgar. And hammers here. They're all distilled on. I'm just going to move my Bugman's Rangers to the outside. Nothing over here. Okay, Bugman's Rangers out. Slayers in. Okay. We're going after Krokgar. Let's make sure everyone's engaged. Okay, these guys. What do I got here? Hammers. I'll maybe bring my hammers around back. And bring my Slayers into this battle here with that Revivification Crystal. These Slayers over here. And just bring my... oh, this guy wants to come back for all the Stelladon. Alright.
Yes! Yes! The clans unite!
Krokgar. Are you shooting Krokgar?
Your targets well!
Ah. I took a rear charge there.
Reach far! Reach fast!
Okay. Ah, I want you in here.
Go! Pick your targets well!
Okay.
Our fire undimmed!
For all the Stelladons going in.
This is a reckoning!
Krokgar.
Missiles ready!
See if we can just finish off Krokgar.
Our fire undimmed!
Get those hammers to charge in the back.
The vengeance begin!
Okay.
Range fire! Range
Oh,
fire!
those Slayers are not going to get there.
Ready to serve!
Let's just get these Slayers to rear charge.
Anad!
Where is the Revivification? Skink
Shoot
Chief.
the Wazarks!
There.
Take them down!
Alright.
Slayers!
And we'll just put these guys here. Okay. And we're done. Okay. Again, this we have a fair amount of health left. This army again is not specifically custom built to face the dwarfs. It's just a test battle, just like all the other testing that I do, and just for interest's sake to see which units perform. And you can see our longbeards. I mean, these ones with 96, they would have went up against the skink cohorts. They're a unit that no one, I don't think, would ever bring in this battle, but the Saurus Warriors did okay. We were able to rout them off early. We were able to take down Krokgar, the Feral Basiladons. The Revivification Crystal took a little bit longer. But, you know, our back line did very well. Our Bugman's Rangers, because they had nothing to compete against that. I didn't use my hammers really well in that battle. Or, obviously, my Grumbling Guard. I did have them up against the big units. But, you know, it's relatively easy. A relatively simple type of battle to run. So the second build we're going to look at is the Goblin King's build. Now this is very specifically meant to face up against the Dawi, and he's got Mazdamundi, who is quite powerful, a Skink Chief, also on an Ancient Stegodon. These Kroxigors can be really good if you let them. Some Pterodon Riders, which can be outstanding against Gyrocopters and you know, getting into the back line, being disruptive. 2 Feral Cold Ones, which we did note that these Feral Cold Ones are actually really quite good if they're used correctly, and a Feral Bastillodon. So you can see the difference though in the build. Our build is generally around the same cost, whereas this build has really 2 big focus points, those Mazdamundi and the Skink Chief, and really the Kroxigors are good places to focus. So we'll get in there and just run that fight just for fun to see what we see. Yeah, the Kroxigors are kind of, they can be really, really good if you let them in there. It's easy to miss out, to not do anything, because there's so many good big units on the Lizardmen side. Alright. We'll just get our edges set. Oops. And again, something like this. Let's do a fairly wide front line. Maybe make it a little bit narrower. Something like that. And we'll put our hammers, same thing right in here. Actually, let me just put these guys, group them together, our front line hammers, and we'll put our longbeards right here. Put them right in the front line to support dead center, and we will put our Lord. So we'll group our backline units, our secondary line units, and group our Dragonback Slayers and lock them down with our Rune Lord. Stick our Bugman's Rangers on the edge, Slayers in defense, other Rangers on the edge, and Slayers in defense, something like that, and we'll just start the battle. And just fast forward it a little bit. We get things going. Play. Just focus on those Pterodon Riders. Make sure my Slayers are out ready. I wonder if I can get some shots on those Kroxigors. On the way in. Okay.
The clans unite.
And
For Grimnir. Pump those dwarven legs.
okay, get in here. I want you. Let's just focus on the Kroxigors and get in here and fight. Get these guys out. These guys out. These guys out. Okay, we want Lord Mazdamundi. That's who we want. Okay, and I just start peppering Mazdamundi. We got our Slayers out here in the back. Uh-oh. Slayers, get over there. Let's go in here. Okay, Mazdamundi. Okay, and I just want to get my Ulthars Raiders on Mazdamundi. Get back here and get my Lord on him as well. Slayers. Okay, I just want to keep these Pterodon Riders out of the way. Okay. Okay, you guys are okay. Alright. We'll get our Slayers on these Croxagors, just to make sure we have that on the go. Looks like Mazdamundi's getting ready to rout. We're starting to dumpster him. We have lost some units. Okay. I think I can bring these guys or Slayers around here. Where are these guys? Okay, let's get them into the Saurus Warriors. And let's make sure we hit Lord Mazdamundi and finish him. Okay. Is he shattered? He is, okay. Okay. Finish these guys. And anything big here? Skink Chief. Okay, 15 seconds left. That Rune of Wrath and Ruin keeps resetting. Can be a bit of a pain in the butt. Get in here. Rear charge, please. And that's, I think it's it. Alright. So, our line held up reasonably well. I could have used our hammers a little bit better, but, and same with our Grumbling Guard. Oh, I should have looked at the how fresh everyone was. I mean, that's kind of the key, the reason you use that build. But everyone performed well. Our Ulthars Raiders did exactly what we wanted them to. And we noticed the Bugman's Rangers on the right side had something to shoot at with the Pterodon Riders. And the left side, I was able to get them around behind a little bit and shoot into the big stuff. And the Slayers did a good job. I kept them away from the Saurus Warriors. I mean, this is all easy to do against the AI. I understand that. I would like to, you know, play against an experienced player in multiplayer, just to kind of understand the weaknesses of the build. And not that I don't have 10 other ones I could play with Ungram and the regular Lord and stuff like that. But alright, so we'll load the last one. Well, the second to last one is the Lizardmen Saurus build. So this is the build I saw used against Turin. He played the Dwarfs, and his opponent in an online quick battle played the Lizardmen and brought a mass Saurus build. So five Saurus Warriors and 5 Saurus Warriors with shields, 2 Feral Cold ones, a Skink Chief, a Skink Priest, and Krokgar on a horned one. So there's a little bit harder to target. And you know, Turin's an incredibly good player if you ever watch him. His build at that one, like the thing he does at his streams, he does play around with his build. He didn't bring a real optimal build for this encounter. He brought a build he thought would be fun, and then he kind of faced up against this mass Saurus. Ah, shit, I gotta load my army. Okay. Loaded it to the wrong one, of course. We're wide. Good. And let's go to the Saurus build. Okay. There we go. We've got 2 right builds, so let's get in there and have that fight. And that's why I don't mind a wide line. I kind of like a wide line, it gives you a lot of options. I mean, I can put my Grumbling Guard in the line. So again, we'll put our edge defense on this side. Group Uthar's Raiders in the pocket. Take Fire at Will off. Our other edge, Bugman's Rangers and Slayers. And then, you know, I don't know, something like this. Just a very wide line. Okay, and we'll just group them up. And same thing as always, we put our Slayers back here. Put our Lord right in with the Dragonback Slayers. Group them and lock them. Let me just square these guys up because they just turn faster when they're in squares. And Slayers in the back.
For mountain and home.
Okay, and see, there's got a nice wide line here. So we'll just start that battle. Got to worry about that skink chief. Let me see. Just lock those guys for now. And we'll just fast forward it a little bit. Alright. Okay, I would like to hit that skink chief. Bring my Slayers out here. Okay, and I got my Lord. Whoops. Let's grab these guys and just head forward. And bring our Slayers forward. Bring our Slayers forward here. Bring these guys forward. I want to get that off on a Saurus Warrior with shields. Feral Cold Ones. Priest with Heavens. Let's get him up here. Okay. There's Krokgar. So let's go up here and just put on Krokgar, marked by Ulthar, and we'll get our Lord and our Slayers on Krokgar specifically. These Slayers back out, and I want these guys over here just to fight into the back. So there's a Skink Priest. We'll just send our Slayers after him. Okay. These guys going after... no, I don't want Krokgar. Okay, and we should be dumpstering Krokgar with our Ulthar's Raiders. Okay, want you guys over here.
Nothing can stop us. Train the Orcs. Lord of vengeance. Move
okay.
now.
Slayers are on the Skink Priest.
What? They have wronged us.
Alright. Just make sure everyone's fighting.
Dwarfs! Ready axes! Dwarves! Ready axes!
Okay.
Ready
Get
to
these guys
serve.
over here.
Shoot the Wazzocks! Raged firepower ready! Defiant and unbowed!
Oh, looks like Krokgar is starting to rout. So I do want to make sure I get these Bugman's Rangers on Krokgar if I can. So we're just going to do rear charge here, these Saurus Warriors with my Slayers. And we'll get my other Slayers over here. Yeah, go get Krokgar, please. Now my Slayers got in that rear charge, now I'm just going to take them back out as I want to get their charge bonus, and that's it. Oh, I'm going to get another Rune of Wrath and Rune here. Okay. Okay, let's put that on the Saurus Warriors there. Okay, and send them in. Slayers in for another rear charge. Okay, and... let's hit those Saurus Warriors. Grumbling Guard. Longbeards. Get these guys in here now. Okay. Let's go, boys. Slayers, I want you out. Let's just get you guys in. Ulthar's Raiders. Krokgar. Hammers. Get Krokgar. Actually, we'll get the Saurus Warriors there. Okay. And let's get those Slayers to rear charge. Let's just get some rear charges getting off here. Alright. And we're almost done. Let's get another rear charge. Okay. I really shouldn't have kept my Slayers in that battle. Get my Longbeards over there. Crumbling Guard over here. Krokgar. Okay, there we go. So that's the end of that. Let me see. Yeah, Longbeard's fresh. These guys are exhausted. It's hard to get the buff on more than one. You know, it's with your Grumbling Guard. But the Grumbling Guard performed pretty well. So we'll end that battle. And I mean, Grumbling Guard got 90 kills. Our hammers got 74, and our Longbeards held the line very well. Even our Warriors of Dragonfire Pass did okay on the outside. I mean, we did lose our Slayers, our Dragonback Slayers. I put them. They were in with some Saurus Warriors trying to kill Krokgar, so you know, maybe I should have cycled them out. But the thing is, our Slayers on the outside, they've cleaned up the outside, and they were able to get in a few cycle charges, which wasn't that awful. You know, Krokgar still got 44 kills, and he's gonna get kills. He's pretty awesome, even if he's just on a horned one. And you can see the difference between the regular Saurus Warriors and the Saurus Warriors Shields. They have a lot more health, and that makes a big difference. The Feral Cold ones were a little annoying, but we could deal with them pretty quickly. So the those are the three builds. Ninja Hun's build, which is a base build for the Lizardmen, not specifically against the Dwarfs. Gobble King's build, which is also really a base package against the Dwarfs, but it's meant to be tweaked and played with more to demonstrate, just like this build is more to demonstrate the ideas. And then this Mass Saurus Warriors build that I saw in a match with Turn. The other match I want to show is just a replay. Battles, replays. It is an online battle. I just opened a room and Octavia came in, which I very much appreciate, and I said, you can bring whatever you want, and to which Octavia replied, anything, in quotes. It was quite funny. So we brought some solar engines and all big dinos, and you know, this is just the same layout, and I guess it shows a bit of the flexibility of this build. Again, this isn't the best build by any means. It's just a sample build. There are builds with Ungram and the other Lord and Iron Breakers and everything else that you have tons of flexibility with the Dowie versus the Lizardmen. As long as you're staying away from the Dwarf Warriors and the Miners and, you know, the Longbeards with great weapons and those units that tend to perform pretty poorly. But here, you know, grab my Uthar's Raiders, and I'm going to hit that Sour Soul Blood. And I already got my Dragonback Slayers in there. You know, the Grumbling Guard is up in there too, and my Lord's going to be coming in, and we're going to start dumpstering him. My Bungman's Rangers get hit. I don't know if I noticed that or not with my Slayers, but I'll probably bring them over very soon. But the Bugman's Rangers are pretty robust. They're getting hit over here as well, but I got my Slayers on the edge, and I was a bit preoccupied trying to make sure I had one unit on each big lizard, and this is where the Longbeards really shine, is because they're immune to fear and terror, and I mean all these units cause fear and terror. So I just pulling my Bugman's Rangers off to let my Slayers go to work, and my Uthar's Raiders are just going to pop in there, and I'm going to be able to finish off that Sour Soul Blood. Yeah, he's really hurt the Grumbling Guard, though. He picked a good target. We did fight this 3 times. This was the first one. The second 2, he did better, and it took longer. Same result. The Dowie won all 3 times. Or I guess maybe I shouldn't have said Dowie win. But actually used this army to kite out the Dwarfs and use all his ammo. He took out both my Edge Slayers before they even fought anyone. But that's where the Longbeards, it was a really, really long battle. That's why I didn't want to show it, because it's, you know, 15 minutes long maybe. And watching Longbeards chase anything is probably not interesting, I would guess. So yeah, that's the one thing that these Bugman's Rangers at the edge, you can see, they just, you know, these guys are healing up, they're regenerating, and they can just start picking and poking away. They don't do a ton of damage. But now these Uthar's Raiders, they've used all their ammo. They can use their armor piercing against these big units. So I would guess he was trying to get to my Rune Lord, which is really interesting. It's not so easy when they're in the middle of guys like this. Like, you see my Rune Lord wandering around there, and they're not really easy to pick off. And of course, away goes the solar engine. We have oh, that old blood came back. And actually, I had the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass and my Dragonback Slayers working on the same guy, so they could synergize there for a little while. But your Longbeards, though they don't do a lot of damage, they do hold up really well. And your Hammers are quite good at fighting against big things. You know, and the Grumbling Guard, you can see here, these guys are active. Fresh. You know, fresh. Active. These guys are winded, but they might be outside the buff. And Longbeards are active. And during long engagements, like, where is... I can't seem to grab them. We'll see that these guys are winded, and there they go. They're going to get that Longbeard buff that's going to help their vigor. But, you know, I would have thought this would have been very, very difficult for the Dowie. But it wasn't. The Slayers did really well in this battle, but in the other next two battles, it took a really long time. He did a really good job of just whittling down my Slayers before I even engaged with his artillery and ranged units, so they weren't really a factor. And it was really the leadership. The Longbeards just kept fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting, and that's where, especially against the Lizardmen, who can cause fear and terror, having these units that are immune to psychology and can just fight all day long really does make a difference. And then having a few units like your Hammers or your Althar's Raiders or your Dragonback Slayers that can do a lot of damage fast is very, very good. And I mean, you can see the ranged units, they mainly got some good kills. And Skink Priest 76, but it's a very, it was a fun little test because we had a mass Saurus Warriors build and a mass Big Stuff build. And then Ninja Huns build and the Gobble Kings build, who I love watching. Because Gobble King plays a lot of armies, and he does like experimenting with them a lot, which is really interesting and fun to watch. So yeah, that's the base build. I did play with a lot of other potential builds. I just thought this is the one I would recommend as the foundation, because you can easily take out this Longbeard, this Warrior of Dragonfire Pass, take a Chevron off this Hammer, and pop in Norgrimling's Ironbreakers. You know, if you want to take out one Slayer and one Bugman's Ranger, you know, you do that, and then you can put in, you know, two cannons if you really want. I mean, it's a very interchangeable type of army. Like, you could take out one Bugman's Ranger and just pop in a Trollhammer Torpedo, and you take out the other Slayer and you can pop in, you know, a Longbeard to protect you take out a Slayer and a Bugman's Ranger, you can pop in your Trollhammer Torpedoes, and if you want a Longbeard to help protect them and defend them in the back line. You know, you want to take out a Rune Lord and use, you know, a regular Lord with just that one small buff, or Ungrim, you can do that and just take out one Longbeard and change your lineup. So this is why I put it this way, is that it's pretty flexible and easy to start with this and play around and find units that you just really want in there, because it's easy enough to take out one Longbeard and pop in one cannon. Or take out, you know, your Warriors of Dragonfire Pass and put in a Bolt Thrower and a, you know, the other Lord, or take out one Longbeard and put in a Runesmith. You know, you have the flexibility to do that with this build and play with it in many different forms, which I like as something that I would recommend to someone else to play with and try out. So that's it for the series. I may, you know, in the future tweak some little things or do some updates or look back on this and If there's changes to the units, I will look at them again. If I do get a chance to, I tried to organize playing an online match against some players who are very, very good, but it's hard to schedule anything because everyone has their schedules and everyone's busy, and it's actually quite difficult to do. So if I do get a chance to play against a real seasoned online player with this build, and whatever build they want to take, just to test it out, maybe learn a little bit about some strengths and weaknesses. The build itself as a full thing is the hardest thing to evaluate. It's quite easy to evaluate units in isolation. Then when you start to put a build together, it becomes exponentially more difficult to optimize the build as opposed to some of the units within that build. Again, that's why I like this base build. Cheapest Lord, cheap units that are easy to interchange for other units you might want in there. Alright, so with that being the end of this Lizardmen series, I would love to hear any comments that anyone might have. I love comments as it is. The main one I'd like to hear is if anyone has other factions they would like to see this same sort of analysis done to. Particularly, I don't know what the most difficult factions for the Dawi to face are right now, like the hard counter, the most difficult matchup. I had planned to do the Tomb Kings next, so I did a bit of a primer on the Tomb Kings, but I think if I don't get any suggestions, I'll probably do them just because they're new and it's fun. But the Dawi have a big advantage on the Tomb Kings in almost every way. The infantry engagement, the backline engagement, the artillery, the Tomb Kings have some really good units. There's no doubt about it, but they really have a very difficult match against the Dawi. So an essential units series might not be as valuable as something against a faction that is much more difficult for the Dawi in multiplayer. But if you have a suggestion, I'd love to hear it. If you have thoughts on, I saw some builds that were talked about earlier that some people really liked, which I would love to hear that. Basically, I love comments, so I want to hear from you guys, and I love reading them. And if you like this kind of stuff, so this type of analysis is not for everyone. It really is for the other dwarfs out there who like doing dwarf things in a dwarf way. I love the Warhammer lore for the dwarfs, where they might take 400 or 500 years to test a military weapon before they put it into their armies. That's just like me. I see a lot of the testing where people will smash two units together and say, okay, this is the end result. They don't really, they don't look a whole lot deeper, but it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But they'll test in 50 minutes and kind of get a result. I've done 7 videos, 7 hours of videos, 30 hours of analysis and spreadsheet work, and maybe 40 hours of testing. I don't know, a lot of testing, for one potential build against one potential faction. So for those of you that love it, that really like doing dwarf things in a dwarf way, I appreciate it that you're here. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe. I love seeing that ping on my phone. I really do. It's motivating. You work full time and you're always busy. It's hard to, sometimes it's easy to stay on the couch and watch a show and not get back here and do analysis, but I love analysis. And if you like this kind of thing, hit the like button and let me know, because I really do find that motivating in an important way. So that's the end of the series for now. Might be some updates in the future. I hope the other dwarfs out there enjoyed it, and I hope you find some of these things that we've analyzed and some of the units that we identified as essential units useful in your own builds. And I'd love to hear from you moving forward into the future. Maybe you see this video a year from now and you find some things that are different. I will definitely come back to it and look at it. Analysis never gets old. So that said, that's the end of the video. Have a good one, and see you soon.